Hi guys, Nikhil here. Welcome to Salesforce Troop. This is the sixth session of our LWC Testing with Jest series, and today's topic is wire service testing. Many people were waiting for this particular session, so here I am. And let's go to VS Code quickly and create first a component and wire service. We'll try to connect it, and then after that we'll start writing the test cases. Okay. So for the wire service, I'll create first a Apex class. Right now, I'm testing with the wire service with the Apex. In the future video, I'll come up with the wire adapters like use record or other adapters. Create record, delete record, update record, sort of. So select create Apex class. Then I'll give the name contact controller. Contact controller. Yeah, that's enough. And I'll write our first method, that is public static. We'll go with the basic one because we need to understand the from the testing point of view, right? So I'll not make it more complex for you guys. So it is of type contact list. The method name is get contact lists. So this will be available and that will return select name from contact public static. Public static and the list of contacts, and the method name is get contact list. You can return any number of fields that you want. I am returning only name for time being, and I'll display the name on the my lightning web component. And this method to be available on the lightning web component, it should be aura enabled, and in Apex semicolon is very much important. So now our test case is ready. Let's right click and deploy it. And now we'll close this and we'll create our component, that is our lightning web component. And the component name I will give my, let's select this, and my wire component, I'll say my wire component. We'll quickly build the wire component as well. So the component is ready. First we need to import the our method from the contact controller, the method that we have created. Everybody knows the syntax, at the rate Salesforce Apex, go to the class contact controller, and from that contact controller fetch the get contact list. And to use this, you can use wire adapter. So a wire service, not adapter, and this you can pass the get contact list, the wire, and to use the wire you need to import it. And we are using wire as a property, so I'll give the property name contacts. So whatever the data comes, it will store in the contacts. And on the HTML, we can create card, lightning card quickly. Lightning card. Give title service demo. And here I can give some margin around of size medium, that is the SLDS classes. And because it returns in the form of array of objects, so first thing we need to make sure show the data if it's available. And for that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the if true directive and say contacts.data is available or not. If contacts.data is available, we'll write code here, and if it's error, we'll write our code here. So data comes in the form of like many records may come, right? Because we haven't write any limit on the record, so it will fetch all the names of the contacts. So for showing the multiple things, we need to use the loop. and the basic loop here is for each contact.data. For item, I call it each item as contact, and within the each item we can call p tag. We can give the key is very mandatory, so contact.id, and you can say contact.name, print on the screen. And if there is an error, very simple, put a div tag for time being and show error with the class error. So this is the basic component, and we can quickly deploy this. I'll just copy paste the meta files, meta tags quickly, so that our component can be exposed to the builder. So we call the get contact list method. The data comes either an error or the data format in the context, and we are using the context on our screen. Like if data is available, then run the loop. If not, or error is coming, show the error. This is the basic component. Let's deploy to our org. And it throws an error like he's not able to find the get contact list. Let's go to our class and make sure the spelling is correct. Get contact list, copy the method name. Yes, we were missing the s in the last, and replace it everywhere with the same name. And let's deploy it again. So finally it's deployed. Let's go to our org and place our component. Go to the gear icon, click edit page. Let me zoom it a little bit. So let's search for our component, that is my wire, and here is our component. Let's drag it to the canvas area. Let's save it, click back. I have used the basic scenario to explain you how to test wire, because if you able to understand the basic approach, you can test any complicated approach very easily. Okay, so now our component is ready which we want to test. So this component particularly using a wire and wire service, and in that he's calling the apex method, and apex method is returning a data, and that data we are presenting on the card, and on the card we are just showing the name. Okay, so it's printing all the names. Okay, so let's go and start writing the test case for this. So first thing, you need to create a test folder here. So underscore tests underscore. Then you need a file with the same name as the component, my wire component, with the extension .test.js. Till here it's very easy. Approach is the same like we did for other. First you need to import the create element from LWC module. Then you need to import the component that you want to test. The component name should be the class name from c hyphen your path, and your path has the small m. My wire component, c is your namespace. Now what we can test here is, we can first test whether it's rendering the records, and how many records are there, 1 2 3 4 5 6, whether 6 records are coming or not. So let's start writing our first describe block, that is the basic structure. Describe uh, my wire component testing, my wire component. And under this testing, we always use a before each, because in this block will run before every test case runs. So we'll create our component within this, and first we need to create an element, and to create an element you need to call the create element, and the element name is c hyphen my hyphen wire hyphen component, and you have to render the code that is class name, and after that you need to render this particular element to the JSON body. So to append that you need to call document.body.append child and render your element. So this is a better approach to write it once and reuse it again and again. So push it into the before each block. So let's write our first test case that is going to render six records. And first we need to fetch the element, const element equal to const s is missing, const equal to your element name, like how to query that. So document dot query selector, because we on before running this test case we already append our element to the DOM, and to fetch any element from the DOM we need to use the query selector. So now we are fetching that. Now here the trickiest part that you need to understand to use how to mock the wire service. Okay, so first thing, you can't directly test the connectivity from server to client. For that you need to mock the data, and to mock the data first you need to create a data folder under the test folder. So data, and under data folder we're going to create a file which will hold your JSON. So JSON is nothing, the response that actually your wire or the your Apex method is sending you back. So we'll create a JSON file called get contact. It can be anything, but it's good to give a meaningful name. .json. So we are giving the our JSON name get contact list.json, and here we're gonna create a JSON, and we already know JSON how to create the JSON. So array of objects. So we are returning ID, and some ID is coming. You can console this. We can do that actually. We will do one thing. We'll go back to VS Code and we'll try to print this render folder. I'll simply start. Console the response and we'll mock the same response. Okay. Say this and that. 25. This is the context. And we'll see if this dot context and context or data is available, then only print that. Otherwise, it will throw an error to us. Render dot callbacks runs every time. I hope so. We're able to print this data. Let's deploy this component. So whatever the data comes, we can mock it. We'll see if we can. Otherwise, we will create our own dummy data. So it's deploying. So it's deployed. Let's go to inspect to our console. Open the console. Refresh the page. So now you can see that the data is printing here. You just copy paste the same data if you want and go to your JSON file and replace it. Okay. And one more thing, just make sure the render callback spelling is correct. I guess I typed earlier wrong, so I just correct it and the data is printing. So I just mock the data. Okay, that should be our first step. Now the second step is to run our service, that is wire service. We need to import what we call first our mock data. Okay, so we can say here the import is different, so we call it mock get, get list equal to, we are using a require, that is a common JS module way of importing the data. We are saying go to data get contact list JSON. Here we are importing, when we use the import type structure, we are importing using the ES6 way by which you can import the data, that is export. But here we are importing the file, not the exported data, right? So here we are importing the JSON file, code file using the require data slash get contact list. Yes, is there get contact list, and we are storing it into a variable get mocks contact list. So now your data is ready that you want to test. Okay, that's gonna come from your service actually. The other import that is very much important, that is register apex test wire adapter. This adapter is going to import from Salesforce SFDX LWC Jest, and this particular module, that is register apex test wire adapter, help you to call or to register your method. Okay, so it's more like this method tells to the Jest, okay, this is the method you're gonna use with the wire. Okay, and to register that, what we're gonna do, we'll say we call this method. We'll say okay, we tell me your method name, that is a wire service is using. So we'll say we'll go to our JS, take the method name get contact list and pass it here. This is my method name that I am using, and you need to tell from where this method name is coming. So just go and copy paste the same import and paste it here. So we are getting the get contact list from contact controller, and here we are telling to our register apex test wire adapter that this is the method that you have to use for fetching the data, and we'll store this response into a variable called get contact list adapter. So now we registered our service that just will understand to which he has to call. Now let's go back to our code where we're gonna check everything. So now in the tests, we already fetched the element. Now we need our adapter, get contact list adapter, and call the Amit. So it will say, okay, just you already know which service I am, call it. And to call it, we call the Amit method, and we'll say whenever the Amit completes, you need to respond this particular JSON. So this is how you mock it actually. So Amit will take the JSON that you are expecting, and register apex test wire will take care which method you want to use as a wire service. Now you know this is a asynchronous approach, so we need to use the promise to get the data like we are doing for the on change and other stuff. So we'll say once the all promise is completed and resolved, then we're gonna test our scenario. So once the response comes, it renders our looping, and to test that loop, what we can do is we can say okay const p the element equal to element dot shadow root, because we already have the element and our code is running on the p tag. So we are saying go to element shadow root query selector all. It means fetch all the p tags, and if it's in the loop, it should be 6 times the p tag should come. And then we'll say we are expecting the element that has come dot length equal to be how much length it should be. It should be similar to the length that we are getting or setting in our mock JSON. So we can say mock list dot length. So on the screen, the same number of p tag should be rendered as the length of the mock. Other thing we can test expect first element dot text content. Like for the first p tag, inside the p tag, the text content to be the same as the first content name. So that is a mock length dot zero dot name, because on the component we are using name property. So we are checking whether the and first mock name and the first p tag name is same or not. Renders six, actually six records, and or you can say renders correct records. So this is how we mock it. We'll test in a minute, but I'll repeat it again. So the key factor here is to remember you need a register apex test wire adapter that will make sure okay which method I need to mock, or which method the Jest should understand this is a wire service, store it into a variable, and whenever you want to call this method, just call the emit and pass the mock JSON. Mock JSON is nothing, under the data folder you have stored the JSON. JSON you can give it in any way, but it should be the proper structure that you are expecting from your Apex call. And once the data comes, because it's a asynchronous call, within the promise block you need to test it. Let's go and test our code. Go to terminal. We'll give our component name my wire component and run this. So your test cases has been passed. See render correct records. Now there may be a chance like your JSON is returning an empty array. So we can create another mock with a scenario like get contact list no record JSON, and in this you just simply say empty array gonna come. Let's go back and create another mock like of our data. We can say this as mock get contact list no records, and the name is the file name. So get contact list no record, and there should be no record. And now we're gonna test for regarding this particular scenario in which the empty array is coming from Apex. So method is same, so you don't need to register it again with that register apex test wire adapter. Okay, so you don't need to worry about this again. Let's go and test our scenario. So for that we can write another read block or the test block. We'll say renders no item when no records are available. Approach is very similar. First you need the element or element reference that you want to test, that is our component see my wire. Then we need to call emit the wire service, but this time we are expecting a different mock data, that is mock get contact list no record. So whenever this gets called, this will return an empty array. And we are, because it's a asynchronous call, we again wrap it within the promise. And here what we're gonna test is fetch all the p element again, and we are expecting our length to be equal to the mock contact list no records. It means 0 equal to 0. So if this works, this will pass, otherwise it will fail because it's returning an empty array. So this is all good. Now meantime it's running, we can write another scenario, another test case for the test failure, like in the error scenario. And for that again we can create another if block. We can say our method, that is get contact list, get contact list and wire error. Yeah, suppose it's returning an error. So in that case, what we can test. So we can what we are doing in HTML, we are saying show this particular div. Okay, so let's go back, and the scenario is same. First we'll create the element. So this element will help us to fetch the shadow root elements. Here the difference is get contact list adapter. We are going to, instead of emit now, because emit is for fetching or mock getting the mock data, but this time we are calling the inbuilt method, that is error, that returns the error, explicitly error. So it automatically return an error object. And to test that, we again gonna, but this is also an asynchronous method, so we write our code within the promise, and we'll say const error element equal to element dot shadow root dot query selector, and it's with error class in the HTML, error class. And we don't know what error comes, so for that kind of testing what we can expect is expect error element dot text content. There will be some content that is not dot to be null. It means something should be there, some text, because we don't know what text gonna come by this particular method of the get contact list adapter object. So now we have tested all three edge cases, or all three cases I would say. One is the happy path, one is the happy path but without data, and the third is the negative scenario with the error. So let's see whether our test cases is running properly or not. So it's in a watch mode, so it will take the last attempt. Let's give the space and it will run the with the fresh code, because the watch mode always keep an eye anything change, and also it may be taking the older code. So it's throwing an error, and he is not able to find the file, maybe the spelling mistake. Let's go to the top, and here I am using double O. It should be get, I can do right click rename, I'll copy paste the file name. That's an easiest approach. Yeah, let's see now. And here you can see our all three test cases passed successfully. So you can see our test cases name render correct record, render no item when no records are available, get contact wire error. So this is how you test your wire adapter. I'll repeat it again quickly to make it more simplify if I can. So first we are creating an element We are importing the component, and we are on load. We are writing the our element to the body of the JS DOM. To trigger the wire adapter, we need a register apex test wire adapter. This is the method that help us. Okay, what is your wire service? Tell me. So we are passing the get contact list, and to pass that get context list, you need to import that context. So we are importing from the contact controller. So now we are storing that context in the get contact list adapter. So whenever you want to call the wire adapter, you need to wire service, not adapter, wire service, you need to use dot emit. And whenever you need to trigger an error, you need to call wire this get contact list adapter dot error method. This is how you call the error and the success scenario. While calling the success scenario, you are expecting some data, and while calling the emit, you need to pass what kind of data you are returning. And to do that, we are mocking the data. Data is stored in the separate file with the JSON. Because we are importing the file data, that's why we are using the records require here instead of import. And this is how we can mock the service. And the other thing, like if you read the documentation from the standard point of view, they always recommend you always clear your mock after each test case. So we'll use after each test case runs, clear the mock, and to clear the mock, you need to just call just dot clear mocks, clear all mocks. This will automatically clear the previous mock because there may be a chance when you're running many wire service or adapter, the mock data may clash. So it's better after each block you clear your mock that you have set. So this is all about wire service. Little bit confusing, but once you write yourself, you get to know how easy it is. And yeah, if you guys have any doubt or any questions, you can ask me anytime in the videos comment or LinkedIn. And please do like, share, subscribe, and thanks for your time. Cheers. Bye bye.